There are a couple of young people from around the globe that I have conversations with on a fairly regular basis. A couple of young guys and a young lady as well. And when I say young, I mean 19 or 20 years old till about 25 or 26 years old. And some of the interesting conversations I have with them are their perceptions of America and what's going on in America right now from where they are in the world, and it's not America. Welcome to Leading Leaders Podcast, 5-minute videos, 5 days a week. I'm J Loren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast. And some of these conversations are about what's going on with the pandemic, and some are about what's going on with the unrest in the streets, and some are about what's going on with politics in general and the election and things of that nature. Some are about religious beliefs, and I mean right down to old world religions versus newer religions, and old world Christian religions versus newer modern Christian versions of the same religion. And it's really fascinating to me because their conversations generally become a series of questions about leadership in politics or leadership in business or leadership in the church. And their conversations always seem to come to me, their questions seem to come to me through a lens that is perceiving our country, our politics, our faith, our public health crisis, et cetera, with a very specific point of view. And it's ironic that some of them are in Nigeria and some of them are in Kinshasa in the Congo and some of them are in Brazil. And when we have these conversations, their questions sound very familiar. And the reason is that the view of what's going on in America today, as seen in the UK, as seen in Nigeria, as seen in the Congo, as seen in Brazil, is the CNN view. Let that settle for a minute. People around the world perceive America through the lens of CNN. Now, whether you agree with CNN or not, I want you to ask yourself the question, if you had to back up for a moment and not have the perspective of your life, of your neighborhood, of your workplace, of your friends and family, if you didn't have that perspective as a firsthand experience, and the only thing you knew about your life, about your country, about your job, about the unemployment rate, about the political cycle, about religious tensions, if the only thing you knew is what you could perceive through CNN as the only way of seeing, would you have a different opinion of your own life? See, the reality is we all have lenses. We talked about this on the last episode. In the previous episode, we talked about confirmation bias. And these 3 episodes go together because confirmation bias is like that rhinoceros painter with the horn in front of them. Everything they see, that horn is in the picture. Yep, everything they see. And then that lens becomes the way that we perceive. And sometimes that lens is the horn that's in the front of the picture. And sometimes that lens is our own emotional state. And sometimes that lens is the culture that we grew up in. I love biscuits and gravy myself. Not real healthy thing to eat, but in the South it's very, very common. But the best biscuits and gravy are from homemade biscuits and gravy that comes right out of the skillet after you've made bacon or sausage so that the meat flavor is in it. When you add the milk and you add the flour and you add the salt and pepper, that's the best biscuits and gravy. But I've had biscuits and gravy in Erie, Pennsylvania. I wouldn't want to put that on a shingle. It was horrible. Well, to them it was great, but they weren't from the South. It just wasn't made the same. So is biscuits and gravy great? Well, it depends on where you've had it and what your perception is going in. Are your expectations being met? Is really the bigger question. It's not a good or bad based on your own objective judgment. It's all subjective based on your own experiences. the lens you see the world through, the culture and the society that you grew up in. I bring this up because last night I watched 2 movies on Netflix. And if you know anything about me, you know that I have a really hard time just idly observing entertainment. Inside my head, I always analyze it. And I'm sure that makes some people that know me crazy. But in one of the movies, there was a depiction of 3 different, significantly different cultures. The street culture, say in LA or Chicago or Detroit, and the mafia culture, and then kind of the rest of the world around them. And it was really ironic the way it all played out, but it was also not just the storyline that was fascinating, but the use of terminology. The way that they would refer to each other as friends, or the way they would refer to the other people who were not their friends, the colloquialisms that they used were out of place, which is kind of obvious when you know what those colloquialisms are meant to be. I'll give you just one minor example. This is not from the movie, it's from my own life experience. I used to have a roommate, white guy like myself, but we had some friends who were Hispanic, and they were from the south side of Austin, Texas when we lived there. And when we would all hang out together and barbecue around the pool or whatever, when our friends who were Hispanic would show up, my roommate would call them the Vato Brothers. Now, if you know any Spanish at all, the word vato is like, hey, dude, what's up? It's kind of a colloquial, an expression of endearment within a community. It would be like 2 black men saying, hey, bro. And that is like brotherhood. It's within the community. It's an expression of endearment within the community. And generally speaking, it doesn't travel across communities so well. Not because it doesn't fit, but generally speaking, it's an expression within the community, like it might be within a family. And so to say Vato Brothers is like saying the Dude Brothers, the Hispanic Dude Brothers. That doesn't make any sense. But it's an expression that reveals ignorance more than anything else. I say all that to say, when I talk to these young people from various countries around the world, almost always through WhatsApp or Facebook Messenger, in these conversations, our primary talk is about leadership, because that's what I do. But it always comes up around culture, around sociology, around politics, around faith, around media. And their lens is always looking into America as a standard bearer through the eyes of CNN. My opinion of some of the stuff said by CNN isn't very America favorable. It makes us look bad. Some of the things they say about our leadership in politics, about the way that we conduct ourselves as American citizens in the world, is quite anti-American, in my opinion. And sometimes I find myself defending things that have been said about America through CNN to other parts of the world, just in order to have a conversation, because it's the equivalent of saying the Vato Brothers. It's inside talk in an outside expression. Are you following me so far? Let me take that one step further. I hear a lot about people saying, well, I want to have the freedom and the independence to do what I want to. And go back and search right there on the blog. You can find the search bar up on the top right of leadingleaderspodcast.com. The search freedom versus independence. They are not the same. Freedom and independence are 2 totally different things. I digress. When people say to me, I want the freedom to be able to make money, to be rich, to succeed in my life. I want people to get all the barriers out of my way and let me accomplish what I want to accomplish. Here's the thing that really strikes me. The people that I see who are successful are not successful because someone removed all the barriers for them. They're successful because they simply refused to quit when all those barriers came. See, there's another misconception that wealthy people are wealthy because they had a chance to get power. And because they got power, they were able to get wealth. There's a word for that. It's called corruption. If your wealth rests on the other side of power, not because you've earned it, not because power came as you continue to build success and wealth, then your wealth is the derivative of power, and that is corruption. If your wealth brings you power and influence, that's the way it's supposed to work. You follow me? See, if the lens that you have of those who are powerful and wealthy is the lens that says they only have wealth because someone removed all the barriers for them to get power, and if you'll remove all the barriers and give me power, I too will have wealth. No, you too will have corruption. And if the lens that you have is only that by getting to America and getting to a position of power, can you have wealth? You're missing a basic element. The lens of your perception needs to understand that wherever you are in society, wherever you are in the world, application of diligent effort, patience, refusal to give up, those are the things which lead to success, which bring about influence, which brings about power. Seeking power for the purpose of wealth is corruption. That's a faulty lens. Seeking influence and power through the diligent pursuit of your own success, that's a healthy lens. But when our world sees our results and doesn't see the effort that went into getting them, they have a powerfully distorted lens. And that changes the way people want to pursue what we've worked so hard to gain. Most people who own companies didn't inherit them. They didn't wake up one day and go, oh, here you go. All barriers have been removed. You're now wealthy. That's not what happened. What happened was most of them started from the bottom and busted their butts to get what they've got. Fubu, a multi-million-dollar company. Damon John will tell you when he started that company, he had to fake it until he made it. Yeah, that's a sentence. You can see him. In fact, in the webinar that he just recently did, he shows pictures of him with LL Cool J. And he said, LL didn't buy that shirt. I gave it to him as a gift because I knew if I could get people to see that others were willing to accept my status and my place, that I would be able to grow from there. The man started a company with $40 and now it's worth over 40 million. Nobody paved the way for him. Nobody pulled down all the barriers for him. He went at it and he didn't stop until he found success. And from that constant effort towards success came power, came influence, came wealth. That's the lens I challenge you to look at life through, and I don't care where you are on the planet. I'm J Loren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast for Tell It Like It Is TV. Have a blessed day. Subscribe now for our extensive video library of leadership lessons promoting faith, family, and freedom.